I recently got a comment on this channel where somebody was basically saying, I wish I had gotten into real estate in 2020. I'm thinking about getting into it now, but I feel like I missed the boat, right? I wish I had started 4 years ago. Actually, I'll just read it right off my phone. It says, thank you for making this, probably about some very cool video that we did. I'm considering becoming an agent and possibly the worst time to become one. Parenthetical, wish I had considered this journey in 2020. I've attempted wholesaling and real estate. I didn't find success with that. Ultimately, the overall tone is that now's a bad time. You missed a very good opportunity, and I want to talk about that. How's it going, y'all? My name is Jesse Lynch. I run multiple real estate teams around the United States. And on this channel, what I'm really trying to do is help people and collaborate with people who want to do real estate a little bit differently, want to do things on their own terms, want to shake shit up a little bit. So if that's you, come hang out for a while, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to get notified so you can see when we're putting all these videos out. If it's not you, you can watch this video, but I don't know, if you want to do things old hat, then there's plenty of people out there doing things old hat, so maybe just keep it moving. And if you have any interest in working with me on my team in one way or another, which can work on a national level, by the way, anywhere really that real exists, that can happen, you can go to my website, jesselynch.co. There's a bunch of information on there. There's contact forms and all that. And feel free to set up a meeting with me, and I'd love to chat about how things could work, whether it's by being on my team, joining Real Broker, or basically starting your own expansion team with a bunch of the legwork that I've done up front. This comment, I appreciate the comment very much, and I promise, first things first, I am not trying to say anything negative about whoever left the comment. I appreciate it, and this is a very, very common sentiment, but it does irk me slightly, right? It's like a certain mentality about things that I would love to try to clear up as much as possible. And everybody said things like, oh, the market was so hot. What a great time to have gotten into real estate. But the truth is that I was a buyer's agent entirely. I think out of, I don't know, my first 100 transactions, 2 of them were sellers. Almost entirely helping buyers in a crazy, crazy seller's market where everything you did favored the seller. As a buyer, you were fundamentally begging the seller to accept your offer. And the truth is, being a buyer's agent was an absolute slog. It was unbelievable. Multiple offers on every single transaction, every single client made multiple offers. And in fact, when a client did win their first offer, they would think they did something wrong. They would think they offered too much. They were like, it should have been harder than this. And so you'd luck out and get somebody under contract on their first offer, and they would bail because they'd have cold feet because it should have been harder. It was a crazy time to be an agent in general, and particularly a crazy time to be a buyer's agent. You also would have people who would lose faith. They'd be like, it's never gonna happen, right? The writing's on the wall. I'm never gonna get a house. This is too competitive. I don't have the means to do it. And I was helping a lot of people in a pretty big price range, but mostly my median sale price was below the median of the market, right? Below the median of the area. So really was helping a lot of people. It was pretty easy to feel disenfranchised with the whole process and think like, maybe this just isn't for me. So you had to keep clients motivated. There's this, you look back at 2020 and you go, oh, real estate was selling for a lot, right? Prices were going up. It was so hot. It must have been a great time to be an agent. And while I did have a great time being an agent, that's when I started. I didn't really know any better, right? And so it just was a very natural existence to me at that point. But the idea that that was the best it will be, in my opinion, is ridiculous. Right now, nationally, on a national level, I'm based out of Minnesota. Again, I have multiple teams in different areas: Denver, Salt Lake City, Tennessee, San Diego, and would be interested in starting an expansion team with you if you're at all interested. I'm based in the Twin Cities. These are more national concepts. Nationally, 32% of offers are in some form of a competition against another offer as of May of 2024, which is now like a couple months ago, but that's how real estate stats work. They're like just a little bit in arrears, right? But that is compared to 77% of offers in the year of 2020. 77% of offers offers had competition, were in multiple offers, or were under, particularly competitive, strenuous circumstances. Sometimes you can avoid competition if you put an expiration on or something like that. But I would say that still qualifies. If you're offering way over list and doing really, really competitive terms and putting an expiration in, I would say that still qualifies as facing competition. And so less than half of the offers that were previously in multiple offers facing competition are now doing that. You will still get houses that go into multiple offers, right? There are still houses that have crazy competition on them, and depending on the time of year, seasonality, and things like that. In Minnesota, our spring is particularly busy, right? Because it's kind of an exciting time. Everything is starting to melt, snow starting to melt, and the market gets super, super busy in the spring. And in the spring in particular, offers are more and more difficult to get accepted, but nothing like what it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Again, in sort of what people think of with rose-colored glasses as a golden age of being a real estate agent. And I believe that now, 2024, 2025, going forward, it's a much more balanced market. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think now and moving forward will reward hard work. It'll reward cleverness, smart work. It'll reward good marketing, both marketing yourself as an agent and good marketing of a home, of a listing, things like that. And it will reward consistency, which luckily for you, those are all things that you can control. About a year or so ago, when interest rates went up and competition slowed down a little bit, people, the news in particular, we'll just say the royal news, was so excited to be able to say things like, the real estate market has dropped by 25%, which was not inherently an untrue statement. And that, they could say that about Minnesota, right? And they would say it. They'd say it all the time. And then people who are not in real estate would talk to me about it and be like, wow, I hear that the market is really tanking. But the market wasn't tanking. People would blindly assume that home prices were crashing. That did not happen. That is not what was happening. The idea that the market dropped by 25%, they were using a statistic to explain kind of the total market, the total volume of homes sold in the Twin Cities area, which that actually did drop by 25%. It went from an unbelievable market, a very quick to turn over, a lot of velocity in transaction because rates were so freaking low. So the velocity was moving really fast. Then the Fed increased the interest rate to try to slow down the velocity of money, which they did. I have very mixed and complex feelings about the whole concept, but they did, and it did slow down the velocity of money, and it slowed down the velocity of homes trading in the Twin Cities. But velocity and amount of homes sold is not a direct correlation to home prices. In fact, the idea that home sale volume slowed down actually protected the market against seeing major price drops. Because by raising the interest rates, that slowed down demand, right? That put fewer buyers who wanted to be buying at that particular time, but it also directly influenced the amount of supply that was on the market. Because if you think about it, if a seller's gonna sell a house in the Twin Cities and move to another house in the Twin Cities, they are creating one, let's call it one widget or whatever, one piece of supply in the home that they're selling, but then they also have now one element of demand. And their demand, or ultimately their requirement to then go buy another home, was not necessarily a good idea at that point. Rates were high. Selling the house, maybe they could sell the house just fine, right? At probably about the same price that they could the year previously. It hadn't gone up, it hadn't really gone down. But then they would have to go buy a new home at an interest rate that is probably almost double what they had on their previous home. So in order to upgrade their home, in order to get a new home, the expense would be such a massive jump. And so by raising the interest rates, it froze not just the demand, but it froze the supply in almost identical numbers, which actually allowed the market to remain somewhat stagnant. And now we're back on a growth, right? It is moving up. The Twin Cities market is growing, and overall median sale prices is on the rise, but at a much slower rate than what it was doing in 2020. There are still fewer homes trading, right? A lower volume of overall sold homes. And in the year 2023, it was a 25% drop. It basically went from 80,000 homes sold in the Twin Cities metro to 60,000 homes sold in the Twin Cities metro. That's a pretty crazy number, a 25% drop in overall volume. That's a pretty crazy number to consider. If you're still watching this, especially if you're the one who left the comment, if you're still watching this, what I think is important to realize is that 60,000 transactions is still an unbelievable amount of transactions to occur in a marketplace. And so you'll hear people saying, oh, the market has slowed down. But that doesn't mean that your business has to slow down. And there's actually an advantage of starting in the year 2024, which, just like when I started in 2020, it was a scary time. COVID hit, right? I got licensed a week before COVID wiped out everything, right? It was a crazy time to be a brand new agent. It felt like, was this a massive mistake? But at the same time, I had never experienced the market any differently than what I currently was experiencing. It was new to me, but it wasn't new compared to something different. It just was all new. So while you're potentially being new in a market that has only 60,000 transactions, you don't know any different. And so that ignorance to what it had previously felt like is actually a secret weapon. It is truly a benefit to you, because now you will only know how hard do you have to work to get a client in 2024 when there are fewer clients to go around, but still 60,000 in the Twin Cities. So consider, how many is that in the United States? How many is that in your market? Are you from a place with fewer people than the Twin Cities metro, which I think is like 3.5 million? Are you from a place with more people? Then I don't know, probably it will scale up directly. And so just like I had no idea what a normal real estate situation looked like, 2020 was completely normal to me. It was the only thing I knew. It was all new. And the reason that everything being new can be a benefit is because you don't have anything to compare it to. And so there's no point in getting down on yourself unless you listen to other people. There are a lot of people, especially in my experience in the real estate industry, who possess a scarcity mindset, right? That's kind of a buzzword and it kind of bugs me, but it's real. Like, it's a real thing that there are people out there who just think like there's not enough to go around, and they definitely think there's not enough for them, right? And so they hear there's 25% fewer transactions. So they're thinking, well, that's all of my transactions. It doesn't have to be that way. And if you're watching this, you can realize that 60,000 transactions is still an unbelievable amount of transactions, and there's plenty to go around, especially for you. So statistically speaking, in 2020, in the real estate boom or whatever, everybody heard, oh, the market's going crazy. So people became real estate agents. And then the real estate industry got a bunch of not very talented folks who just thought, I know some people who would sell. I will become an agent so that I can help them sell, not realizing that there's just so much more to it. It's a business. It's not just a job and you get a license and that's that, right? That means that there's more competition, right? There's more agents out there. There's fewer transactions and more agents. But if you've watched anything on this channel, you know that most agents fail quickly, right? I hope that anybody who watches this channel is not one of those agents, because it requires an immense amount of work. It requires a lot of effort and a sort of sureness that you will accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Because the good news, I guess, is that real estate is an unbelievable opportunity. Real estate, if you can crack it, if you can figure it out, it can change your life in all sorts of ways, and probably ways that you don't expect. And so yes, there's fewer transactions and there's more competition. That's gonna be waning, more competition. There will be people dropping out for sure, because they hear that it's gonna be, I might as well give up. And the overall amount of volume of sales will go up, but I would argue it's almost a non-factor if you're willing to work your ass off, right? And good news for you, you will outwork the competition, right? You're watching this channel, you're trying real hard. You will then take market share from the people who are leaving. And even if somebody doesn't leave, there's a fascinating thing that occurs. It happened during COVID. People were kind of thought it's not a good time to buy or sell. And so they just sat on the sidelines and let them, right? But there is not a good time for you to sit on the sidelines. Every time, every day, every year, even in a down market or an up market, it's all good. It is all the best possible time to be trying to find clients and help people accomplish what they need to within the real estate space. Even if you don't believe me, right? You think, well, it's still 25% less transactions, right? That's gonna be a hit. I'm gonna take a hit on how many transactions I could possibly do because the market on the whole is seeing a hit. Well, then I would say, okay, maybe you can use that to motivate yourself, right? Maybe you can sort of trick yourself into feeling like a cornered animal, right? To where you're like, I want to do this. If you're watching this and you're new or you haven't even become an agent, but you really like the idea of it, then you just need to know like, hey, you have to do whatever it's gonna take to make this happen. You have to create a level of certainty within you that you will figure this out. And so if it's gonna be a nightmare, if you're in the worst market in a long time, then you're gonna have to put in the extra effort. You're gonna have to act like a cornered animal and get after it. Running a real estate business or being a real estate agent has the ability to compound, where let's say you help one person a month for your first year. That'd be a pretty good first year for a lot of agents, to be honest. It can be way more than that. I'd like to say that. There's no reason in your first year it couldn't be 50. There's literally no reason at all that it couldn't be 50 people, 50 transactions in a year. But let's say it's one a month, 12 a year for the first few years. That's decent, right? That'll be probably better than whatever stupid fucking job you're working before it. It'll be better. On the whole, your business will begin to gain momentum. And even if you're just steady, right? You're just steady Sally, just getting after it, same exact amount of effort, same exact amount of clients. Eventually, the client you helped on year one will have to sell, right? At least one of them. So then if you're still getting 12 clients a year through marketing efforts or whatever, then that turnaround, it will happen, right? However many years in, somebody, your first client or second or whatever, is going to eventually sell again. And then maybe you'll double side that. So by default, you have 12, and then, okay, now this one is now 14. And then it's gonna happen again. And then your normal is gonna be 14 at that point. And then next year, it's gonna be 2 more. And then your normal is gonna be 16. And you're gonna figure out how to handle it. And again, there's no reason that these numbers couldn't be 10 times the numbers that I'm talking about. There's sort of a self-limitation that we put on ourselves where, you consider the idea of selling more homes and a certain number feels almost impossible. Even though, again, there's 60,000 transactions on a down year. There's no reason that you couldn't do 600, right? That's 1%. There's no reason that a person couldn't do 1% of a whole market if they were really trying really, really hard. There are plenty of businesses out there that have way more than 1% of the market share. And so there's all this sort of fear mongering, right, that occurs in the real estate space. If you look at like a Facebook group, like Real Estate Masterminds or whatever, any of these Facebook groups, it's just all fear. It's insane. I just look at it and I just have to go, well, I can't pay attention to this because this is just a bunch of scared people talking about scary stuff. And what good does that possibly do me? Warren Buffett, the brilliant investor who's pretty much out invested everybody ever, has a saying, be fearful while others are greedy, and greedy while others are fearful. Once you see people, oh, look, there's a really cool opportunity, well, that's probably not the best time to be doing that. And so right now, people are scared. That's a really good time to be greedy, take up market share, and just put the pedal to the floor and get after it. One of my favorite, this is a really random thing, one of my favorite interviews that I've heard in the last year or so, Bear Grylls from Man vs. Wild, right? I don't know, if you know, you know. right? It's pretty cool. Anyway, he was on a podcast called Diary of a CEO, which is a really, really great podcast, great YouTube channel. Go check it out. Devour that information. There's tons of people doing things at a very, very high level that can be very, very helpful to you in your business. Anyway, English chap, Stephen Bartlett, good looking kid. He kept kind of asking Bear Grylls, like, what is it about you that makes you special? And Bear Grylls did not want to answer that question. He was very opposed to the idea that there was anything about him that made him special or unique or different. He just kept saying, like, I'm just a guy, right? I'm just a guy who figured this out. And he's done a bunch of crazy stuff. He wasn't just a guy on Man vs. Wild. Right? He's done all sorts of other things, like the equivalent of whatever England's equivalent of a Navy SEAL is. I don't remember, but something like that. But Stephen kept kind of trying to find little things in there to sort of throw out that question of like, but is that what makes you different, right? Is that what makes you special? Is that why you are able to do things that other people can't? And he kept saying, no, I'm just a guy. But then at some point, he sort of resigned and he said, I think if there's anything that makes me different, there's nothing really special about me physically or mentally or anything, right? I'm not capable of more. But when I look around and I see other people like in his like squadron, right? Like in the whatever the Navy SEAL thing is. Other people in there who are getting exhausted, giving up, feeling discouraged, and starting to kind of have this negativity around it, right? Where they're just like, man, this sucks, right? He said that sparks something in him to dig extra deep. He uses that as fuel. And I think there's something very, very helpful in that. And I've tried my best to sort of acquire that, or even just kind of like hit myself over the head when I see that and go, that's what that is, right? As much as I would love for everybody out there to crush it and to have an unbelievable life because of the opportunity of real estate, it's not gonna happen. It's not a realistic thing that everybody will have that. I'd like for everybody watching this to have that. That's probably not that realistic either, because I have no idea what the personality types of the people watching this are, but I know there's one person, two people, maybe three, right, watching this. At this point, this channel doesn't get that many views. There's maybe just like a couple people out of everybody who will ever watch this who are thinking about getting into real estate where this will hit home. But other people feeling discouraged, other people being afraid, the Facebook groups, whatever, Reddit, everybody talking about how, oh my God, it's insane. There are people on YouTube talking about how it's a down market, and so it's just gonna be down, right? Somebody out there, I hope it's me, I hope it's you, sees that and realizes that that is a unique opportunity. There's a way to thread that to where you can leapfrog tons of people. You can leapfrog your previous self because you're recognizing the opportunity that is in front of us in what is a down market. You can see that beneath the choppy waters of the lake or the ocean or whatever that is the real estate industry, and everybody's freaking out. They're like, oh my God, it's insane. That you can just dive lower, right? You can just figure a way through, because there is a way through, and the people up there are just thinking, well, you know, it's just not a good time to be out, right? Lake's too choppy. It's not a good time. We'll just kind of sit tight. But the whole time that they're sitting tight, there's a ton of people who need help. And so you're the one not sitting. You're either diving down or you're building a better boat, or, you know, you're like Lieutenant Danning it, right? And you're just like, this is sick. I'm happy to be here because I didn't know that it was ever not like this. And that's where the opportunity lies. And in my opinion, that's why 2024 is as good a year as any, if not a better year than we've had in a long time to become a real estate agent. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Hope that's been helpful. Bye.